Has Generation Z culture adopted classic Mercedes? This is a great question, because what we are asking ourselves is, are these cars really as timeless as we say they are? So during the first part of this video, I'm going to provide some examples of Millennials and Generation Z actually embracing these cars as part of their cultural expression. And then we're going to look at why this might be happening, or even perhaps what it means for the marque going forward. So here are some great examples. The example that I really like is that Donald Glover uses the 123, uses a black 123 300D in his music video for Heartbeat. And so it's interesting because Donald Glover would otherwise be known as Childish Gambino, but he's not the only one. Stephen Christian, who was from the band Anberlin, and his post-Anberlin project Anchor and Braille, uses a 123 wagon in one of his videos. And if some of you are familiar with the movie Once, Glenn Hanser drives a red 123 wagon in one of the later parts of a movie where he and Marketa and Glova drive to the seashore in Ireland. And I think it's like a 240 TD. I'm pretty sure it's a diesel, which is kind of unusual there, but it's very red. So some of you have seen this already know that Millennials seem to see a parallel between these cars and like hipster culture, or at least post-hipster culture. The whole problem with this, and this is probably a topic for another video, is that this group loves the cars that they don't seem to understand how to maintain and preserve them like they're supposed to be. They like having it, it's just nobody taught this type of culture to take care of their things. So, you know, this is a common problem. But now we're going to look at some examples from Generation Z, and granted, there's a certain amount of appeal in these cars. So when I was at Publix one day in a 300 SEL 6.3, this guy who was collecting carts approaches me and he goes, "Is that a 300 SEL 6.3? And I said, "Yes." And the car, I said, "How do you know what this car is?" And he goes, "Oh, this car is in like some kind of racing video game. It wasn't in Grand Theft Auto, but it was." I don't play video games, so I'm not really hip with this stuff. You know, it's not my deal. But like, he recognized the car because he had unlocked it in some game he was playing, and he was like no more than 21 years old. And I was like, okay, like that's how you know what this car is. Great, you know, that's pretty interesting. Another really good example that I've seen more recently is in Generation Z and Millennial targeted advertising. So my friend David Halperin, who has 3 classic Mercedes, sent me a really great ad. And if you guys are into advertising, so is he. His business is called Criterion Global, and he will get your business on YouTube and a lot of other platforms so that everybody could see it. You know, and his citation of seeing these cars in different clothing ads, particularly 107s, has been really insightful, because a lot of the time featuring vintage cars in clothing ads has always been something that you would associate more with hipster culture rather than big box stores. And probably because the clothing industry is heading in 2 directions, either extremely immodest or extremely vintage. The stuff that goes extremely vintage has to bring in an icon. And it's interesting because their assumption is that Millennials and Gen Z must recognize the 107 as an iconic 80s car. Now, for Millennials, that makes sense. But for Gen Z, the question is, where do they embrace this iconic Mercedes look? Like, where did that come to them? And I still have yet to figure that out. Now, a third great example of this sort of strange embrace of classic Mercedes is more less out of the mainstream and more, I would say, more, I would say, underground. So I tend to keep notes on people who recognize and appreciate the cars. And the funny thing that I've noticed is there's a skew that goes on when I drive certain cars out, when I get in conversations with the younger people about this stuff. The cars they seem to recognize instantly, like no question, 107, 123, 108. They seem to know what these are. And I have a conversation about once every 2 weeks or so, because remember, younger people tend to be, I wouldn't say they tend to be shy, they just tend to be less associative with people who are older because most of their communication is through emojis and text messages. I mean, it's the truth. There's nothing wrong with it. It's kind of efficient, but I'm just saying, like, having a conversation with a guy like me is a little different, you know. It's something they may not have planned on doing when they started their day. But they seem to instantly recognize the 201, the 107, the 123, the 108, the 109. And I don't even get out that much. Like, I'm not the kind of person that goes a lot of places, you know. So what I find encouraging is that somewhere their media presence is starting to feed them these cars, and I think that that's very encouraging. So, is it timeless? Well, there's this, I can't remember the name of this country singer. I really wanted to meet her at one point, but she, I thought her first name was Marilyn, but I can't remember. And she had this whole video about like vintage Mercedes. I can't even remember the name of the song, but my wife got really excited. And she was like 20 at the time. You know, she's sort of like a Gen Z millennial borderline. And then I looked at some of the other songs she had. She has a song called My Church. And in My Church, she's driving a W108. I'm like, this has nothing to do with the lyrics of the song. Like, you just like the cars. Like, I think you're admitting it. You know, you like the cars. And so, you know, we're starting to see this. This is a good thing. It's just, I would encourage this group to learn more about the mechanical function of the cars rather than just appreciate them for the timeless icons they are. Because if you enjoy something, try to take care of it. That's all. All right, I'll see you in the future, guys. Like, share, and subscribe. Tap the bell for notifications. Comment if you like my man bun. We'll see you in the future.
I love that one.